Hello, we are in week 4, the final week of our May journey through spiritual practices for soul transformation. I've been choosing one a week from this wonderful resource called Silencio. We've covered holy eating, embracing the mystery, self-care, and today it's withholding judgment. Yes, that is a soul care practice. And I think you'll see why as we talk about it today. Well, you might be wondering why I am wearing a mask. What were your initial thoughts when you signed on and saw me all masked up like this? Did you think I was one of those who are overly concerned about catching the coronavirus? Do you think I look silly, ridiculous, or scary? Or did you breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that I'm following government guidelines to curb the spread of the virus? As you think about your response, do you notice a spirit of judgment? Even in these questions, you might detect judgment. Whew. Well, masks is just one of the many issues we judge each other on, and this just happens to be a particularly contentious one nowadays. Well, I want to read the opening paragraph on withholding judgment in this book, Silencio. It says, the desert fathers and mothers were convinced that a growing humility, characterized by the refusal to pass judgment on others, was a sign that one was being drawn to God. They believed that those who encountered God in themselves on the spiritual path would learn to see themselves as they truly were and would soon lose all appetite for judging others. They would come to a right estimation of themselves, fully aware that they were both beloved children of God and sinners in need of redemption, just like everyone else. They would recognize their own shadow sides and know that they bore within themselves what they were prone to condemn in others. Wow, that's so convicting. You know, humility is one of those hidden character gems, undervalued and underappreciated for its beauty. I remember singing in church when I grew up this old hymn. It went like this: humble thyself in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up higher and higher, and he shall lift you up. You know, one sign that you are growing in humility is you no longer have an appetite for judging others. This is because humility involves two things. First, it involves seeing others as you see yourself. And secondly, it involves seeing yourself as both sinner and saved. Our sins show we still need grace and redemption, while our adoption into God's family shows that we're fully loved and accepted by God through Jesus Christ in spite of our sins. Does this mean we can cast judgment on non-believers? No, because as sinners, we didn't earn our salvation. It was given to us. That's why we call it the gift of salvation, received by faith. There's no room for boasting. Besides, it doesn't matter what you believe. We don't really know people well enough most of the time to assume the role of judge. I mean, do you know everyone's story, their background, and history well enough to cast judgment? And if you do, then does your own life give you the right to judge? Passing judgment is the opposite of humility because it tends to elevate ourselves above others and makes us blind to our own mistakes. This is not the same as keeping our brothers and sisters accountable for wrongdoing. I think that's important. We can gently point out our concerns that someone is going down a sinful path while still withholding judgment, knowing that we too have been down sinful paths before. Luke chapter 6 in the Bible, verse 41 to 42 says this: do not judge and you will not be judged. Do not condemn and you will not be condemned. And then goes on to say, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And that's the main takeaway. When we practice withholding judgment, we practice compassion, sympathy, and the way of peace in our souls. We practice humility and looking at our own mistakes before we look at other people's mistakes. Our hearts become soft towards our neighbor, allowing us to love freely as Christ has loved us. Well, here are some spiritual practices to help us cultivate a humble spirit that withholds judgment. First one is, consider the labels you have assigned to people in your life. What adjectives are you likely to use when you think of them? From where did this label come? Can you take a fresh look at them without this label? Ooh, I don't even want to think about some of the labels that I've cast on people in my life before. In what ways have you judged yourself? Are there labels you've affixed to yourself that reflect disdain? Look at yourself objectively, free from these negative labels. Just as we ought to withhold judgment from others, we also not be so harsh on judging ourselves. We also ought to freely accept the love that God has given us through Jesus Christ. And then we can love others in the same way. You know, as I promised at the beginning of this 4-week series on soul care practices, if you had attempted to do all 4 and would like to share your experience with me, I'm happy to send you this book. Tell me which was your favorite. Was it easy or hard? How did you see God working through them? So just drop me a line at jchung@parkwayumc.org. Hopefully it'll be on the screen there. jchung@parkwayumc.org. I would love to hear from you. I would love to give you a copy of this wonderful resource. Well, God bless you, and may He awaken our hearts to a deeper presence of Himself each and every day.